Chapter 6, The Stripper Diaries. I didn't know what to do, so I went to MySpace looking for the answers. I sent out a bulletin asking people how to find a job and didn't get any replies. Until Alice Cooper. Yes, the Alice Cooper. His profile had over 1 million friends, so I was shocked to see it in my inbox. I must have clicked it 1,000 times to verify it was coming from that account before I read it. I opened it while holding my breath. It was from his personal assistant, Brian. Brian said he saw my picture as he was accepting friend requests and thought I was gorgeous. I was so flattered, and we began talking. As I felt comfortable talking with him, I asked if he knew anyone hiring. He said he didn't, but suggested that I work at a strip club. He told me I was hot enough, which I would have never believed for myself at the time. So I asked him how. He told me he knew the owner of this particular club in Hollywood and that he'd get me an audition. I went in at the time he said to and met with the owner. He looked at my ID, then opened up my shirt, grabbed my boobs, and told me, okay, I was hired. Said I could start immediately. I was intimidated by all the girls dancing. I saw a lap dance room right out in the open. Beautiful, tall, thin, gorgeous girls with big hair and even bigger boobs, flipping and dipping on stage. Yeah, I was scared. I'd only had sex once the month prior, and I'd never worn a bikini in my life. I didn't have any stripper outfits with me, but the DJ suggested that I just go in with what I came in with, which was literally lingerie under a jean jacket. Going on stage that night, I was nervous, but I knew I just had to do it. Just do it and get it over with. And I was over it almost immediately. Once I was on stage, bare-ass naked, I felt, well, you did it, Trish. The hard part is over. I got guys coming up to me on stage, of course. The girls were all laughing at me. But I was getting money. I was terrible at going up to guys and asking them for dances. Nobody ever told me the strategies on what to say or what to do. I would talk to guys for literally an hour and then chicken out and just leave. I always wanted guys to ask me for a private dance, but that's not how it operates. As soon as I would get up, a girl would come by, chat with the same guy for 10 minutes, and then get a private dance. I could never figure it out, and therefore, I wasn't making any money. So basically, I was living off of tips from the stage as my main source of income. I started selling clothes on eBay as well, and then I finally got a slew of part-time jobs on the boulevard that I just couldn't stand due to dullness. I ended up quitting every job I had within a couple of weeks. I would dance every night, but only come home with about $50. My neighbor, Superman, he was the guy who dressed up as Superman on Hollywood Boulevard, would start talking, and he convinced me to try and go out with him on the boulevard dressed up as Supergirl to make extra cash. I didn't want to at first, but he said Jimmy Kimmel Live comes on sometimes and asks him to do sketches and pays union rates. So I went out and actually got to be on an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live. It was all worth it. I was racking up TV credits, and I felt good. I was exhausted from dancing 5 hours a night and standing on the boulevard for 8 hours a day every day, but you always hear if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And it was a heck of a lot better than going to school or living at my dad's. Brian finally asked me out on a date one night, and I agreed. Nobody had ever taken me out on a real date before. He was literally my first. I was almost 19 and was just now going on my first date. The guys I was having sex with never took me out. They just invited me over to their houses to hang out around midnight on occasions. I didn't even know what he looked like. All I knew was he had been Alice Cooper's personal assistant for like 20 years. To this day, Brian was my favorite first date. He picked me up, brought me flowers, and even had a little bag full of gifts for me to open at dinner. He took me to the Grove, but it was kind of crowded, so we ended up just going to this place called Hamburger Helmet in the Valley. It was awkward to be out with him. He was in his late 40s, but looked a lot older, slightly balding, bleach hair, and not so handsome face. But I did find him entertaining. I opened my gifts at dinner, and it was a bunch of Alice Cooper memorabilia like CDs, DVDs, and even a used makeup towel from tour. I found him fascinating because of all he had done in his life, how he got a job with AC, and all of the other Hollywood adventures he had experienced. I've always had an attraction to older guys. Daddy issues? Perhaps. But I've never dated nor have I slept with a guy under the age of 30. Heck, I've only slept with one guy in his 30s. Everyone else was older. I always say you have to be over 40 to ride this ride. Okay, like I need to be any more perverted. I get it. Nevertheless, I liked Brian as a friend, but wasn't sexually attracted to him. Besides, he went to strip clubs, and that was just a turnoff for me. I did go back to his apartment out of politeness. Being overly polite is a habit of mine. I can't say no to people. We picked up ice cream and went back to his place. We ate it on the couch, and out of nowhere, he looked at the clock, said, "It's midnight. Now I'm going to kiss you." And he did. He kissed me with a scoop of mint chocolate chip in his mouth and transferred it into mine. It was cold and unromantic, but I did give him a good minute of make-out time. He tried to go further, but I told him I was celibate, which was a lie. Reoccurring themes. English majors. He stopped. He said he understood and then drove me home. I didn't think I'd hear from him again, and was okay with that. Ladies, word of caution, if you're meeting someone off the internet in person, make sure you see a picture of them first. Don't let them pick you up at your house and meet them in public. I was lucky with Brian not being a stalker, but not so lucky with others. This would be foreshadowing, so highlight that for your thesis. Brian actually did call me the next day to my surprise, and he actually asked me out on a second date. This was a new concept for me, like, don't have sex right away, and they may actually want to get to know you. What a novel idea. He wanted to go out that night, but I had to work at the club. And that was the truth. He showed up that night to the club and was my first lap dance customer. The owner was shocked, as were the other girls. I'd never gotten a dance, especially not within 10 minutes of saying hello. This gesture was actually so sweet of Brian. I know many of you may be like, "Trish, this was just his way of getting you naked," but he had known about my struggles with stripping and how it didn't come easily to me. He was very sweet and respectful and kept his hands at his sides. As soon as he left, the owner fired me. I was confused. I had just gotten a dance. "Yeah, that's the problem," he said. "You've only gotten one dance in the month that you've worked here, and it was from your boyfriend. So go get your stuff and leave." The one income I really needed just to make ends meet, and I was fired. I called Brian to pick me up, but he didn't answer. A customer from the club followed me outside and heard my phone conversation, and even offered to drive me home. I didn't think anything of it. I needed a ride, and it felt safer than the bus, so I accepted. Side note, I smashed my little beetle bug my third day living in LA by hitting a parked car in my complex. It was a hit and run by me, but it wasn't exactly hard to track me down. My locks never worked, and my car barely ran after that, so I used it sparingly. Here's the part where I'm swallowing spit and rubbing my eyes and wondering if I should put this book down. I like to sugarcoat things, but I want to let these feelings, emotions, and experiences out so I don't have to hold them in anymore. So I'm just going to do it and say this in hopes that I can genuinely help even just one person not to go through this. This guy drove me past my house and up to look over LA. I was a little scared because this was not what I wanted, nor was it even offered. He told me I looked a little scared and to just relax, and that he was going to take me home. It was a Lifetime movie come to life. I watched way too many Hollywood stories about aspiring actresses being murdered because they were floozies or whatnot. I really thought this was my punishment for stripping. I remember praying to God that I stay alive and that if I didn't, to forgive me of all of my sins. As my eyes were closed, I felt a hand go up my skirt, and I heard his seatbelt go off and his zipper go down. A car went by, and he stopped for a minute, but then climbed over the console on top of me. I didn't cry. I simply asked if he wouldn't. He wasn't abusive, and he didn't hit me, but he did tell me to stop talking. I was so fearful he was going to kill me that I did. As soon as he started having sex with me, I kept saying no, to which he put his hands over my mouth. I blacked out. I didn't pass out. I blacked out. I'm not sure of anything that happened next. All I remember is the car pulling up behind us and turning off its lights. And the guy who was on top of me quickly got off, started the car, and sped off. I don't know who was in the car or if he knew. I thought the worst, and it just made me paranoid of being in parked cars ever since. I will not sit in a parked car for longer than 5 seconds without freaking out. He did drive me home, and he did ask me if I enjoyed it. I said yes at that point just to get him away from me. I never saw him again, but I felt so violated. I was shaking for days after, and I've never told this story until now. I've hinted to my mom that I've been R-worded, but never came out with the full details. It's not as horrifying writing it out, but it still makes me shake, and my heart is going so fast, and I'm looking around my apartment just to make sure the doors are locked. I was pretty numb after this. I told Brian I was fired, and that's all I told him. He told me there were plenty of other strip clubs, and he was right. I started at another one down the street shortly after. Something changed in me that night that I was violated. I was now numb to men. I wasn't intimidated by them anymore either. I started going up to guys and playing their emotions like I used to with my parents. I would find something to make them feel guilty, tell them lies. I'd say that I have children at home. I'd tell them I was a virgin. I would say I have a boyfriend who beat me. Pretty soon, these guys would feel sorry for me and just couldn't say no to a dance. I was only getting to work one night a week at this club because of all the girls who wanted to work. So I started working at a second club in Van Nuys. This was a ghetto club with all ethnic girls. I was the only white girl working there. I always dressed in baggy, ugly clothes so they wouldn't steal anything from me. I never drove my car because I wanted them to think that I had nothing, like them, so they wouldn't feel intimidated by me. I know they were, though. Dances at this club were easy as standing in the view of a guy. He'd come up and take me by the waist to go pay for a private VIP dance. These guys weren't like the guys at the Hollywood clubs. These were your illegal construction workers who didn't know any English, spending their entire paycheck on you and just trying to cop a feel whenever they could. Giving lap dances to these guys was like being in a wrestling match. You had to keep pulling away and hitting their arms from you. Guys would stick their nasty fingers in places that would make you cry. I would hate myself after working these shifts, but it was easy money, and pretty soon I just didn't care anymore. I would drink in the back and black out during dances. I couldn't take it day after day. I never took drugs, and I never wanted to. I have such an addictive personality. I would for sure be so scared that I'd get addicted and just couldn't stop. I mean, I can't stop searching for love, can't stop eating, can't stop shopping, and for a while there, I couldn't stop having sex. I just knew I needed more days at the Hollywood Club. I couldn't get more days, but a girl who went by the name Exotica took a liking to me. She mentioned she had a side business where she hired girls to go to guys' houses for private dances and make 3 times what they make at the club. It sounded exciting, but she told me it's not dancing we'd be doing. I immediately got scared and backed out. I may be a dancer, but I'm no prostitute. I said no thank you and went home and cried. I got on my knees and prayed day in and day out while working at the clubs and on the boulevard to find another acting job. I even went to church again. My dad used to take us every Sunday, but my mom never got in the habit. Not 2 hours after morning mass, I get a call from the producer that I worked with at the Greg Barrett show. Trish, I'm working on a new show and I want you to be on it. It'll air on Sci-Fi and it's with Stan Lee. Are you interested? I didn't know who Stan Lee was at the time, but you bet your bottom dollar I researched him and pretended to know. The producer got me a fast pass to auditions, meaning I auditioned straight with the producers. My producer helped me create a superhero for the show Who Wants to Be a Superhero Season 2. And we came up with this great character who got her superpowers from movies and television. Her name was Epic. Epic had white hair like Storm from X-Men and a hot little black ice skating outfit that I used as stripper wear. I took my stripper boots and strutted my little plump thighs in front of Stan Lee at the callbacks. I improved the whole audition, turned up my bubbly, and dialed up the dumb like a maniac, and I was cast on the show for 1 week later. I quit all my strip clubs and said never again. Trish will never be a stripper again. I packed my bags and moved to this little superhero house in the little reality TV world.